So it's nice to see you all. My name is Diana Economy, and I'm the director of Full-Time MBA Admissions at Michigan Ross. And I'm also an alum of the MBA program. And I am joined today by my colleague, Michael.
Hey, good morning or good evening, everybody. I'm Michael Lippert. I'm one of the senior associate directors of admissions here at Ross. And, I've been on the admissions team for 7 years, but also when my wife was a student, she was connecting with lots of students and alumni long before I was in this role. So definitely got to watch her go through that process as well.
Yeah, this is an awesome place for partners. It's been really cool. We actually have a couple partners who work on our admissions team, and in general, partners are really highly engaged in the experience, which is cool to see. And I know you were when you were a partner of Julie. When you were going through the program, Michael, or when she was going through, but together. So we're excited to have you join us for this session this morning. So this is a new series of events that we've started, and these are our 30-minute tip series. And so we did this because, well, we heard from you. We know that you've got Zoom fatigue, and we know that an hour can be long, and you're trying to get the information that you need succinctly, efficiently, and directly from the source. And that's what we're here to do for you today. So our topic today is connecting with students, the admissions committee, and alumni. So that's what we're going to focus on in the next 30 minutes. And we're not going to take questions during this session to keep it shorter. And we realize people watch this in its recorded format too. So that helps us have a succinct session in a recorded format. But we do encourage you to join our upcoming events, in particular our office hours. We're going to start offering those weekly. And what happens in an office hour session is that you can drop in, you can get a chance to talk to an admissions officer and ask any questions you'd like. So we'd be happy to answer any questions there or at any of our other upcoming events. With that, I am going to hand it over to Michael, and we'll kick things off with connecting with students.
Yeah, let's talk about our student ambassadors. We love our student ambassadors, and we are so proud of just how many Ross students sign up to be an ambassador. We have over 200 student ambassadors on our website. It's almost more than half the class. And, I would just remind you, sometimes I talk to folks who are like, students are really busy. Are we sure they have time for this? It's like people are excited to share their experiences with you. And really, it's a sense of paying it forward, right? They were just in your shoes a year or 2 years ago, trying to navigate all the different MBA programs, all the jargon and all the buzzwords, and really sort of differentiate which programs are right for them. And they want to share their, how they discovered the right school for them and their experiences at Ross. And so don't be bashful about reaching out and asking them about their experiences. They sign up to be an ambassador by choice. They want to share those experiences. So please do reach out. When you get to our student ambassador page, there's more information than you might anticipate. It will be a lot at first, but it's actually really well structured to help you sort of filter to where you want to go and find the right people to talk to. So there are a lot of filters, including career interests of our students, what they were doing before business school, sort of by industry, and where they came from, right? And so you might, naturally want to start off by looking for folks who feel sort of similar to your background, right? Maybe making a similar career switch, maybe come from your region of the world. There'll be a lot to talk about, and it'll be sort of fun to talk about those shared experiences. So you can filter for things like that. As you can see at the top here, whether it be different clubs, regions, citizenship, things like that. One thing I'll mention at this point that is always one of my favorite tips is definitely have a couple of conversations with people who look similar to you, but I highly, highly recommend reaching out to one or two students from completely different backgrounds. So why do I say that? Those are the people who are going to be in class with you, who are going to be part of your network for the rest of your life, and you're going to be learning from over the next 2 years. And so it's really, I think, particularly important to see if those are the type of people you connect with. Is that somebody I want to be in class with, even if on the surface we would have never connected in my current life? I think it's really important to get that perspective. So don't overly structure yourself to just talking to people who look like you. If you were to click on a profile that looks of interest to you after you do some filtering, there's also going to be a bio on the page where you can learn more about the person. I think that's an important step because naturally a conversation's a little bit easier when you know something about the person and can make some connections, and people like talking about themselves. So definitely take a minute to learn some more about the student that you're going to reach out to. when you get into those conversations, there's some good questions to ask, right? Students are living the experience in real time, going to classes, recruiting. They are the best source by far to talk about these things. Diana and I, as admissions officers, are always happy to share our tips and what we're hearing from students, but it's important to hear it directly from the students, right? And so, we talk a lot about action-based learning, for example, and we'll describe what a map project might be, where you're a consultant for 7 weeks to a top company around the world. Asking one of our students, which company did you work for? What were you presenting on? What was the scope of your project? Who did you meet with to learn more about your recommendations? Those are good questions to ask to fully understand how action-based learning looks in practice compared to maybe the case method, right? And then for recruiting, what is virtual recruiting like? Or, tell me about networking. Tell me about how you're preparing for case interviews. Those are really good questions to ask. You probably want to be careful of asking admissions profile questions. It could be tempting to maybe ask some of those, but keep in mind that that's what admissions officers are here for, and that some students maybe didn't live that experience. So a good example here is, you're maybe worried about the virtual test or the, online GMAT and how that maybe looks in your profile, or taking it, or a test waiver, if that's right for you. Our second year students didn't have any of those considerations, and they probably don't want to think about the GMAT anymore. And so, be mindful, maybe ask the right questions of who you're talking to. And then a couple of last tips is definitely be thoughtful about your time and the person you're talking to's time. MBA's schedules are really busy. And so if you schedule a 30-minute conversation, you want to make sure you sort of stick within that time frame. And we've all been in those situations where a conversation is going really, really well. And you say, hey, I just had a couple more questions. I'm really enjoying this. Do you happen to have 5 more minutes? But like being really mindful of that throughout the conversation, I think is particularly important so that you're respectful of people's time. And then lastly, Diane and I definitely want to encourage you to also connect with our club leaders. So clubs are a really important part of Michigan Ross. I would say our co-curricular space is just as important as traditional academics and recruiting. There are a lot of club leaders. If you go to, say, the Design Plus Business website, where you can learn more from a club leader directly about their experience with some of those skill development or leadership development clubs. And it might be harder to tease those out from student ambassador profiles. So a good way, if you have specific questions about a fund or a specific club, is looking at the website of that club and reaching out directly to a club leader, and they will get back to you and share their experiences as well.
Great. Yeah, Michael, the only other thing I would add to that is just, you've got to really pace yourself with regard to, like, the students that you're reaching out to. It's not a quantity game, it's a quality play. And so make sure you're getting the information that you need. A lot that you can get by just navigating a lot of our virtual resources. Even before you've reached out to a student ambassador, you can review the profiles on the page, and you're going to get a really good idea of who's at Michigan Ross, because we've got a lot of ambassadors out there. But recognize that you're at, a little earlier on in this admission cycle. If you're planning to apply this fall, you've got a select set of questions now. After you apply, maybe when you get invited to interview, that could be a different time when you've got some new or nuanced questions. And then, of course, if you're to get admitted, there's going to be a different set of questions. And so you don't have to get this all done right away. I think that this could be something where you start the conversation, you start to learn a little bit more about the program. But before you even reach out, knowing enough about yourself and what you're looking for out of the program is going to be really important. We are also really happy to connect with you. There's our team. We don't look like that right now. We look like Zoom boxes on a screen, but we're actually also going to be back, as our students will, this fall in a residential format. So we're moving towards much more closer to normal than we were this past year. So, but as you see, there's only so many of us, right? So we're excited to connect with you and engage. You'll typically see us in these kinds of formats. I mentioned the office hours earlier. We're going to be at a lot of different events with a lot of different focus areas over the next couple months. And so we look forward to getting to meet you virtually. At this point, although things are starting to return to normal, we actually aren't able to have visitors on campus at the moment. We're trying to get back to a space where we can make sure that the emphasis is on our students and that they're having the best possible experience leveraging the spaces that are available at Michigan Ross and in the classroom. But where possible, we are going to try to bring Ann Arbor and Michigan Ross to you. If you haven't visited Ann Arbor, if you haven't visited Michigan Ross, they're really great places. Ann Arbor is a really vibrant, engaged, international, global community. It's really exciting. And so we will make sure that we're sharing as many resources as we can with you to get to know the experience virtually. But you will get to know us throughout. You'll see Michael and I for sure. And in fact, one thing, Michael, I noticed when our students that are matriculating this fall, that'll start in a couple months, when we saw them at our admitted student events, it was like, it was like a reunion, right? Because we had seen them so many times throughout this virtual world. So I think people have some concern that it's virtual and am I getting to know the school and the admissions officers? We kind of see our students and our alumni and our community, even the resources on our website, as an extension of who we are as a community. And so do keep an eye on, all of the resources. You don't have to have kind of, this extensive face-to-face time with us to get to know the program really well. That said, as I mentioned, we are going to be at a lot of different online events. And so I hope that you can join us. This is also not a quantity game, okay? So pick the events that are going to make the most sense to you. I started off this session by saying, we're doing this in 30 minutes because we recognize how busy you are. So please pick the events that make the most sense. Come to those events, ask your questions, get the information that you need, and engage with us throughout. So you'll see that we have a lot of different types of events. We also have recorded webinars. So I can share our events page again here in a second. Actually, I just sent it a little bit earlier. Attend an upcoming events. So if you'll see in the chat, and for those of you that are listening virtually, if you go to our events page and you scroll to the bottom, we have a lot of recorded webinars. I mean, we have probably 10 to 15 different career webinars where we spend an entire hour on focusing on, so you're interested in healthcare, why might Michigan Ross be the right fit, or consulting, or tech, or venture capital and private equity, social impact, sustainability, and more. There are also webinars about life at Ross as well. So you might want to check those out to get to know the community a little bit more. And that's something that you can do in your own time. It's a really good way to get to know Michigan Ross. You can also follow our admissions blog. So we put a lot in our admissions blog where we try to be as transparent as possible with where we are and what we're up to. And so I'll put the admissions blog in here. And this is going to give you insight into like how we think about looking at your essays, what we're thinking about along the way, where we are with the admissions process, maybe when we might be making phone calls to our admitted students. So keep an eye on our admissions blog as well. And then I'm going to hand it over to Michael to talk a little bit about alumni.
Yeah. So if you haven't been to a Ross event yet, or just thought about Michigan, we get really excited about our alumni network. We've been ranked by The Economist as having the #1 most effective alumni network. We also have, by size, one of the largest alumni networks in the world. Ross alums, like one of our calling cards, I think, as a community and culture, is that Ross folks will get back to you. I always tell folks, as a social proof, reach out to a couple of Ross alumni on your own and see how much more quickly and responsive they are compared to some of the other programs you might be looking at. It's something core to who we are, that people will reach out to you and connect with you and give you that time. I think it's all about who we are. I'd also say the Michigan network is one and the same with the Ross network. I think there are some other great MBA programs where it feels very separate from the rest of the university. And the Michigan network, and I joke about this sometimes, but it's the only school you'll hear about at the Emmys or the Grammys when somebody in their acceptance speech will say "Go Blue," right? Or to talk about their school. And so that network is powerful. And so you definitely want to connect with alums to learn more about who we are as a school. And one great way of doing that is the people right around you, right? And so in your network or at your company, I'm sure there might be some Ross folks who have a Block M flag at their desk or during basketball or football season are talking about how excited they are about Michigan. And those are great people to learn, just like early on in your research, learn more about the school and talk to them about their experiences. So that's a really good place to start. And when you're talking to alumni, we talked about some good questions you might want to ask students. There's some obvious questions you might want to ask the admissions committee. And I think with alums, talking about their life and experiences in Ann Arbor, that's sort of a constant over time, right? And so they might not remember the specific class they took 5 years ago, or some very specific things they did while at school, but they remember, like, what did they like about Ann Arbor, right? What was their time like? And then also alums are incredibly active in the recruiting process, right? And so they're the ones actively talking to their companies and firms about what are we looking for in MBA interns or MBA full-time hires. And they come back to campus to recruit. And so learning about sort of the industry dynamics and helping you get started on that path as you're making a career switch, asking alums questions about, who is successful in the tech world, or what are you looking for in the consulting, in the interview process. Things like that are really good questions to ask alums. And then we get asked all the time, well, I'm a military veteran who's looking to get to the Bain office in Dallas. Who can I talk to, right? Like some very, very specific questions. And I actually would have 3 or 4 people for you to talk to, which is awesome. It's just we get hundreds of those requests early on in the year, and we just simply cannot make as many matches as we'd like to early on in the process. So early on the stage, I probably rely a little bit more on my own personal network and introductions that I might be making. And then later in the process, when you're trying to decide between Ross and another school, and you're making a very tough, specific decision, that's where Diana or I might step in and connect you to some alum at a very specific company or that has a very shared experience to yours. So that's where we'll come in, and we'll be happy to help at that stage as well.
Great. Thanks, Michael. So a couple other things, we've mentioned some of these, but the one that we haven't on here is our Business Beyond Usual student podcast, which I love. And I will put in the chat here, do listen to our Business Beyond Usual podcast. It's super refreshing. It's got a lot of different episodes on all kinds of topics, things that might be top of mind for you. There are episodes on what does a career in tech really mean? Or what was life like during the pandemic at Michigan Ross? Or there's an episode where the partners take it over, right? And you hear directly from the partners about their experience. Life in Ann Arbor, what MBA recruiting is really like. Lots of good stuff here on the podcast. So do listen. That's a great way, just maybe when you're working out or going for a walk or whatever. I think you'll get a really good, authentic view of what's happening at Michigan Ross directly from our students. We also mentioned, of course, our student ambassadors. Do take a look at that webpage. We are excited to see you at some upcoming events, and we will be sharing our admissions blog. If you're subscribed to our emails, that's usually where we'll feed out that admissions blog when we've got updated news and information to share along the way. With that, Michael, any last minute thoughts on just best practices for this part of the process and for connecting with the school?
Yeah, it bears repeating. Diana said it a few times, but I can't emphasize enough the quality of your interactions over the quantity. This isn't sort of like a race, or you don't have to have the longest list. It doesn't help you get in the admissions process if you simply just register for all the events or email 30 student ambassadors, right? The quality of those interactions are far more helpful and meaningful to you as you're doing your research. And then a second piece of that is I'd also be mindful of sort of the time frame. And so I think a lot of folks in the process right now are studying for the GMAT or thinking about essay questions and thinking like, I'll reach out to students in a little bit, right? I'm not thinking about that right now. It's actually the best time to connect with students is right around now. They're on their internship, so they're busy as well, but maybe not quite as busy as they would be during classes. But also there's just a little bit more time right now. So what happens is a week before an application deadline, our student ambassadors in particular get swamped And it's just a little bit harder to maybe have a meaningful conversation before you hit the submit button on your application. And so space some of those things out. It might sound a little silly, but even just like, I'm going to have one conversation this month, each month leading up to my application, that could be really helpful to sort of keep you on track. And then Diana, I love your tip about, writing down how you feel. I know it sounds corny, but I think that's a good one, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think a lot of people keep these spreadsheets and they're kind of like listening for certain things about the entrepreneurship center at a school or what's happening here or there. And they're kind of checking the boxes of certain offerings that align with their interests. But you really have to pay attention to how you feel as a result of having that conversation you've just had. So maybe even on your spreadsheet, well, certainly do keep track of who you've talked to, their contact information, because little later on you might want to tell them, hey, I got in, right, and I talked to you 6 months ago, and your conversation really helped me further along. But you could even have a column for just even a scale of like 1 to 5. Were you energized by that conversation or not? Right, how did you feel as a result of that conversation? Because when we talk about fit and people kind of say, hey, how do I know if I found fit, what does that mean? You're going to feel different energies from different schools that are going to resonate with you or not, right? And it's important that you make this investment in yourself at a place where you're truly going to thrive and be your best self and bring your whole self to bear in this process. And so starting to talk to members of the communities, that initial take on, would I want to be classmates with this person? Could I see them as part of my alumni network? Because this is not just a 2-year investment, as Michael mentioned, it's really a lifelong network and investment. And we really see it as such. This relationship is for much more than 2 years. And so making sure that it's the right fit and the right investment for you is going to be really, really important. The other thing I'll mention is just be gracious, right, with your interactions. Our community is happy to talk to you, to connect. They want to make sure they're answering your questions, but they are really busy, right? So make sure that you're getting the information that you need, that you're getting it succinctly, that it's not something that you could find in other places, and that you're genuinely asking questions to get to know the other person on the other side of the table, right? They're happy to talk to you about their experiences as long as it's going to help you and inform the process. If it feels transactional, like something you're doing just because you feel like you're supposed to, they can see that too, right? And so be genuine, be authentic in your interactions, send a thank you note after, right, just to thank them for that time, because they are happy to give that time. But um, you know we want to make sure that there's a reciprocal relationship and that you're getting the information you need. So be gracious and have some gratitude with the process as well. Great. And with that, Michael, I think that we've hit on all the major talking points here.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah,
we're
go ahead.
no pun intended, but we're looking forward to talking to everybody a whole lot more, and we'll see everybody throughout this process. We're excited.
Yes, great. And this will be recorded. We will make sure to share out all of these. They're actually going to be on our website as well. As I mentioned, join us on one of our office hours sessions or an admissions chat to get your questions answered. We look forward to getting to see you a little bit more throughout the next few months. We wish you well on the application. We're rooting for you, right? I think people feel that the admissions team are the gatekeepers and, oh my gosh, I've got to impress them and figure out, how to get in. But really, we're looking for reasons to advocate on your behalf. And we can't wait to get to know you more throughout the application process. Thanks for joining us today. Go Blue.
Go Blue. Have a great day.